Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics.
And hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Drewling Samantics. Another episode on its way for you.
I'm here, Sam. Sorry, mate. I was just tea. I'm just making the tea. Have you started?
Well, I hadn't even finished introducing, mate. But there he is. Drew's here. Hello, Drew.
I'm keen to be with me, buddy. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. You're looking fresh-faced and ready to go.
Well, I wish I could say the same for you. What's with the old face fungus then?
What do you mean? You're not a fan.
Last time I saw you, you were beautifully clean shaven. Now look at you, all rough and ready, mate.
Mate, I've just grown the beard out. It is nothing but pure laziness. No, you're right. I mean, so I've not been on set this week. We've had a brief break from filming, so I've been doing some other stuff, mainly sort of voiceovery bits and things at home. Hence, not having to be clean shaven or stubbly or whatever. I've gone the bearded route. So yeah. But it's been a good week nonetheless, and I assume yours has been most enjoyable. More shows. How have they been?
Yeah, I'm just enjoying another week of Ghost on the Wire. Been good. We've had a few reviews, so that's we had a few people on bums on seats, moving along nicely. So yeah, really enjoying it. It's a good piece of work. So I'm playing enjoying doing the two characters, and our director has left us now. He's moved on to another project, but he and I haven't seen each other. We worked as actors together. PK Taylor. We worked in the Ha Ha shows, which I did a few years ago. So it's been really nice. We've been in contact. We watch each other work and that, but we haven't actually been in a rehearsal room together for quite a few years. So it was really nice to get back. Amazing. And be directed by someone that normally we're on the other side of the stage.
Yeah,
so it was really nice working with him, and yeah, it's always nice to work with old mates. It really is.
Yeah, when you see someone you haven't seen for ages, or even if it's like in an audition room or something, or you come across someone, or you see someone pop up in a show that you've gone to see or something, it's just really nice, isn't it? Making those reconnections, I suppose, is the
Yeah. I mean, it's easier these days of Instagram and Facebook to be able to sort of follow each other around, but there's nothing better than just sort of sitting down and having a natter with someone, is there?
No, you've got a grin on because I know what you're doing. It's one of those things that I don't know if we've ever mentioned it on Drewling Samantics, but we do like a segue.
And I've got a little segue there.
Have you really sat there with your grin like a bloody Cheshire cat? Go on then. Go. We'll act like nothing is out of the ordinary.
Okay. I'll just sneak this one in there. As I said, now talking, Sam, of working with old friends. I'm working obviously with you today, an old mate, and we have a guest with us today, as we said.
We do.
Or another one of our wonderful guests from the industry. And he is an old mate of mine. He is an old mate. I haven't seen him for several years. We did at one time work, pretty solidly together on various shows and that. So why don't we let the man in that I think we're going to have fun this morning. I think we're going to have fun with the Jonny Hansler. He's in the waiting room, probably champing at the bit. So should we let him in?
Don't keep him waiting any longer. Ladies and gentlemen, please meet the wonderful Mr. Jonny Hansler.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to Jonny Hansler. Good morning, Jonathan. How you doing, mate?
Good morning, my friend. Yes, all fine and dandy here. Thank you for having me, my friend.
It's Jonny. It's an absolute pleasure. I mean, it's been a few years for you and me, hasn't it, since we've been in the same space.
Since I used to hit you over the head, and God knows what I did.
I'm lucky enough that I have that honour now. I get to lift him up on a regular basis. So, Jonny, pleasure to meet you, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Been very excited about this one. I know lots about you from speaking to Drew, but don't know from the horse's mouth, if you'll excuse the expression. So I guess maybe we should start off, for my benefit and for all our listeners and watchers. Can you please give us a bit of a brief intro about who is Jonny Hansler?
Oh, it's very interesting. Well, who is Jonny Hansler? Well, actually, strange enough, Hansler is my middle name.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually John Britton, but there's a guy in Equity who is an absolutely sod all in any way, shape, or form that I can see, or has really basically pissed me off. Because I would have liked to be John Britton or Jack Britton, maybe. But I actually, in a way, I'm grateful because Hansler is such an interesting word. There's a few Brittons about. There ain't many Hanslers. And Hansler's got an oddness. It's slightly weird, which is my sort of thing is weirdness. So it makes an awful lot of sense. Hansler is Swiss in origin. And my great grandfather was the first person to be knighted by Queen Victoria.
Wow.
Absolutely true. And also he, in fact, there's a great story. He was so tall. He was a very tall chap. And she was tiny and very ill at the beginning of a reign. And she only had this battle axe that some other king had had before. She couldn't lift the sword to dub him. So you had to send him away and get another one made. And apparently that sword is the sword that was used today to knight all the peers of the realm. So he was also apparently a spy for Wellington. He had a vintners on Charing Cross Road, which was a disguise for a spy operation. I mean, there's a whole film to be made out of that. But I can't quite beat that. I've got quite a long way to go. I've got to get knighted by Prince Charles and be the first one. That's going to be tough. How am I going to do that? Anyway, there we go. There's that. Anyway, Jonah Hansler became my name because I wanted to balance Hansler with John Hansler didn't sound right. Jonathan, I extended my name, so it became John Hansler. But because I seem to play an awful lot of villains these days and sort of darker characters with a comedian's background, which I think is really helpful because I often think villains have to be played by. I think comics make brilliant villains because they've seen both sides of they've seen both sides of things and they can put a bit of a twinkle into the art of villainy.
Yeah.
When you look at characters like Scar in The Lion King. And Jeremy Irons. So, I mean, you can't say Jeremy Irons wasn't a comedy actor, I'd say. Yeah, he's not known for comedy, is he? I mean, you don't think of Jeremy Irons, he's a comedian. No. When you see a performance like that, you realise the comedic potential that is sometimes so missed in people. Anyway, there you go. That's sort of, does that help?
That does help, mate. Yeah, I'll clarify the hitting over the head.
Yes, I didn't. Yes.
Yeah. I didn't think one of my friends beats me up on a regular basis, which there are websites for. We've
descended already. Steer away from it. Steer away. But as it's usually I'm usually Sam's usually the one that's outnumbered because of the various guests that we've worked in the dinner theatre immersive world. Today I'm outnumbered because I'm the Manuel surrounded by two Basils.
Two Basils, yes. Yes.
How I met both of you. Well, I met Sam and Comedy Dining, but Jonny, we did loads and loads and loads.
We did masses of them, didn't we?
Masses
of tons of 40s, yeah.
Of 40 Towers. So it's we nearly played together on a tour of it, but my dates didn't work out. And we didn't get to.
No, it's a real shame. I would have been so good. I mean, David was wonderful. David Boyle was absolutely. Do you know David?
I don't know David. I know him by reputation.
He's a wonderful. He did a one-man show about Peter Sellers, and he did a one-man show about Anthony Newley. I mean, he's the go-to for dead Jewish people. Sorry, my humour is pouring out. My humour is pouring out of me. Look at it; it just comes out. So it flashes out, pours out, and So he was wonderful, and our Polly. We had a Polly as well. She was fun. I mean, it's just a privilege to do the original lines from the show for the first time in 40 years. And of course, Cleese was watching us on video, and he did the audio for the show, which actually I could have done myself if you'd only let me. But anyway, it would have been cheaper, wouldn't it? Anyway, sorry, carry on.
No, you can. No, I think we ought to go. I mean, we've had 30 seconds, and suddenly Mr. Hansler is giving us about 20 characters, which
Well,
means
yes.
you're running slower than usual, Johnny. You're a lot faster than that, mate. I don't know.
I don't know what's that with me, mate. I don't know what's that with me.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I remember, and this was one of the things I remember. We were working together. We were in Belfast, and I always remember you saying,
"Oh, for God's sake,
yeah,
yes, Belfast, oh
Belfast,
my God. Yeah."
But let's not go any
Great
further.
place for comedy. Great place for comedy.
But we were walking through. We were just walking. I think we're walking home after the gig and chatting away. And you made a very, very. You made it. You said, "I'm an actor with a comedian's brain." And I always remember going, if that sums up any way you've ever summed yourself up, I think that was it.
It's a very good way of putting it.
It is, and I think you summed yourself up. And
Even
I think
though I said it myself.
We have to start sort of with your comedy roots. And
yes.
I mean, I know, but for everyone else,
yes,
who drives that crazy left of field comedy view that you have, Johnny?
Well, I can actually tell you who that is. It's two people, actually. It is, of course, our great Lord John Cleese, but it is also Mr. Peter Cook. Now, the reason why I came into this business was not because of a love of actors, although I do think actors are fantastic. I love Peter Sellers and I love Alec Guinness. I think they were two of my favorites because they were so wonderfully versatile. And I think versatility. George Sanders made a very wonderful comment. I played George Sanders in a one-man show about his life called Villain in Tinseltown. And he made a very interesting comment. He says, a good character actor is virtually indestructible. I think that's a really, I mean, he says, oh God, you can be a gorgeous lead, but you only have to look at people, Tyrone Power died when he was 48, other people, they fade, they go, but a good character actor will never die. Well, obviously he'll die, everybody dies, but they'll go on to the bitter end because they'll always be in demand. And I think that's a real truth. That's a real truth. But my real and of course George was known for playing villains. He played so many villains, but he was apparently lovely. And I think the great thing about villains is they're generally played by lovely people. Vincent Price is one of the funniest people there ever, and yet he made his career out of playing villains. But he was a wonderfully funny man. They were all funny. Boris Karloff was apparently hilarious. They were all very, very funny people. This is not something to be. This is why I think sometimes I don't want to be rude about casting directors, but I think sometimes they make a little bit of a mistake when they go for straight actors to play villains, because I think you need that edge. I think because villains are twisted. They're not straight run down the line people. They are, they're slightly off skew whiff. Let's put it that way. Anyway, let me get back to what you were saying, Drew. My inspiration came from a sketch which I watched when I was very young. And I saw John Cleese and Peter Cook on a park bench in a sketch, and it was Cook was talking to Cleese, and Cleese had a newspaper, and Cook said something which just caught my attention, which was, did you know that your intestines are 4 miles long? What? Did you know your intestines are 4 miles long? No, I didn't know that at all. It's amazing how they cram it all in. I just sort of sat there and I listened to this guy spiel out, and I just thought, this is amazing. Who is this? And I never knew who Peter Cook was at that point. And from that on, it was a journey because I found him so fascinating and so interesting. And yet I don't think there are many people who know who Peter Cook is. And they should do, because he's a lesson in comedy. And he's largely forgotten these days. But he was certainly, Lewis Carroll was one of my inspirations. Edward Lear, Hilaire Belloc. I used to read, because I was in my rather drab school days, I used to go through Roald Dahl, his adult books. And I was reading his adult books, not his children's books. I was reading real savage stuff when I was much, much younger. That's why I love The League of Gentlemen. Yeah, that's why I love The League of Gentlemen, Inside Number 9, all that stuff. And my favorite film, of course, I think I told you about this, is Theatre of Blood, which is absolutely fantastic film with, again, a very, very dark, this is dark stuff, but it's beautiful. Did you know Theatre of Blood? Theatre, well, many people may not. So let me just give you a little potted thing of Theatre of Blood, because it is absolutely brilliant. It was made in 1973, directed by Douglas Hickox, and it's basically about a Shakespearean actor played by Vincent Price and his daughter, who's snubbed by all the critics, who and who gave him dreadful reviews in his performances of Shakespeare. So what he did, maybe I should, can I, what do they call that thing if you give away the end? I keep forgetting what it's called.
Spoiler alert. We can put a spoiler alert.
Well,
Yeah, this is what he does is he's a Shakespearean actor who's been savaged by these critics. And one evening, when they're all crowing up, all these critics are crowing, they're giving the award to someone else. He comes up and he vows that he will get his revenge, and then dives off the building into the water below, and everyone thinks he's dead. But he's saved by a bunch of drunks who become his sort of entourage, and he plots to kill every critic in the Shakespearean ways of each of his plays. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Diana Rigg is his daughter, bless her, long gone. But what a lovely, fantastic, when you see her in TV, it must have been an absolute joy to work with her. You know, brilliantly funny. I love funny people. They're my saving grace in life. I think anybody who doesn't have a sense of humor should have their bank account stopped.
Amazing.
But yes, so it's an incredible film, and the music, which is totally. We have a lot of great. I love John Barry, and I went to see John Barry's the Royal Albert Hall for not. But the guy Michael J. Lewis is a composer no longer with us, but his music for the films he composed is wonderful and yet forgotten. And this piece of music is just beautiful. But this has got Diana Rigg, it's got Arthur Lowe. It's got Coral Brown. I mean, Vincent Price ended up marrying Coral Brown.
Coral Brown,
fantastic film, and loved by people like the League of Gentlemen. I love the League of Gentlemen. You know, I'd love to do an episode of Inside Number 9. That is kind of my thing. Is that dark edge of comedy? That's where I fit in. That's my fitting in area. Yeah, definitely.
And you've written a lot of comedies. I know you've.
I'm a lazy writer, Drew. I've written one play we crowed about. I've written a few sketches when I was with a double act called Teak Show. For 9 years, and then she goes off and does a fucking PhD. I mean, I just swear, I just feel like I have to.
Yes, you can.
She goes off and does a fucking PhD. Doesn't even fucking tell me. 9 years later on, I've worked with you for 9 fucking years. I put up with you for 9 fucking years. You go and fucking do a PhD. Well, I'm left. The great thing is, though, I'm left with the knowledge and ability from sketch comedy and what it does to you. The fact you can play 20 characters in one night, you can spin them a sixpence, you can go from here to there in a second. So that ability I was left with, which is wonderful, you know, to have that ability. So I'm grateful for the years I spent doing sketch comedy. But I'd still like to be doing it because we were winning awards. We were doing rather well, and you know, and my visibility in the media may be larger if I had taken that part. Let us put it that way.
I mean, you say your visibility, and this I spoke to you via email, and I mentioned this. This is something I've wanted to ask you about, because there may be people out there who recognize your voice or certain tones to your voice, but can't pinpoint why. And this is because you did some voice work for what can only be described as, and I'm going to upset potentially Star Wars fans and James Bond fans, but video games involved with the biggest franchise probably of all time, I would argue now. I mean, they're probably close, but when you look at this particular route and compare it to some of the big guns, it's got to be up there. So talk to us about voiceover for Harry Potter games, because it blew my mind. Like, this is incredible.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, all right. It was. I mean, it basically Jason Isaacs couldn't, but he wasn't going to do it. Not the money I was getting. But he wasn't. He was nowhere to. So I did the voice of Lucius Malfoy. So if you ever watch Harry Potter and some of those bloody letters that fly about, and those things, the squeaking beasts, whatever they are. So I did a lot of that sort of stuff for them. It was done in a day or something, and I was just in one place. And I mean, I didn't think much of it. I suppose I should go on to these fan things and go, oh, no, I am the voice of whatever it was, and then make a fortune out of going to these places and getting loads of photographs. But I don't know, would people be interested in it? I don't even know. Some people say
I think it's just, obviously there are enormous franchises in things like Star Wars and
yeah. Harry Potter,
I think Harry Potter took off in such a way, and that it is so enormous now. To spawn things like video games and a play and the wizarding world, and to be as global as it is. I think it's been translated into something like 210 different languages, or it's in 210 different countries, something absolutely insane. Like 97% of the globe or something knows who Harry Potter is. So albeit you may consider it a small part, but you have played a part in what is probably the biggest phenomenon for 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Yes, again, another villain, a villain again.
Well, yeah.
So, what can you do? I mean, I think I played 5 villains this year. I'm doing one at the moment. So, it's sort of where I'm going a lot. Although I played a hero in a film called Give Them Wings, which is the story of a lovely, lovely story of a guy who had meningitis from birth, and how his struggle in Darlington, which required me to have a Darlington accent, but he's kind of the weird inventor next door who's kind of saves him from this very aggressive father and his mother who dies. So there's this sort of hero villain thing going on there. Although I tend to play more villains than I do heroes these days. Yeah,
but they're more fun, Jonny. I mean, Drew and I know quite a lot about Panto. Our listeners and watchers know that we're very involved in Panto and Christmas shows, and we've always said that as much as it's nice to be a hero or a heroine, to be the prince or the princess or whatever, to be the lead, actually the fun roles are in the comedy and the dark side. So to be the villain, or to be the dame, or to be the comic, that's kind of...
Well, I think the reason for that is quite simple. Because as a hero, there's only light. There's only light. This is all you are. I'm light. There's not really a dark side to me. I'm the hero. Oh, how dull is that? Whereas with villainy, you have light and shade. You actually become a much more three-dimensional. Actually, you often think that villains are much more three-dimensional. But if you think of any film or you watch any character, if it's a villain, there's more dimensions to that character than there is in the placidness of a sort of hero or heroine, because that person has got, they've got reasons for doing what they're doing. And there's more solidity to them in a way, which makes them more scary, which makes them more, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, go on, Drew. Sorry, Simon. I just very often I've done my fair share of villains and murderers and psychos in the past, and very often, as you said earlier, it's their charm, it's their believability. It's you if you walk into a room with a cloak on, twirling a moustache, you're pretty much going to be sussed and you're out of there. But if you walk in with charm and
absolutely.
wit,
or if you walk in as somebody who looks just like they're another member.
Absolutely. The door is thrown open.
Blank face, but you can paint so much onto it.
Yeah. The door's thrown open, you're in that room, you're being invited in, and that from thence on, you can create your villainy, your darkness, your mischief.
Yeah.
Which is why, as you say, a lot of comedians make good villains. I think they do. Now, I wanted to get on, but go backtrack a little bit, because one of your great heroes, and it was a wonderful play. I saw it with the wonderful Kev Orkian, was Cook and Moore.
Thank you. Yes.
And the two of you played Peter Cook, Dudley Moore. A fabulous show. There is more going to happen to that show, I know, but
I fucking hope so. I really do, because it is a show. Now let's be honest. In this world of Me Too, We Too, Who Too, whatever to Doctor Who, I don't know. But in this world where we are today, right, where everything is so. I mean, look at Jerry Sadowitz. What happened to him in Edinburgh? You heard about Jerry? I mean, what the Pleasance? Sorry, guys. What are you doing? Stop being so scared. What are we scared of? Everything? Comedy's comedy. Ricky Gervais says it. There's nothing we should be. Comedy is comedy, and that makes me agree. And I worry. Would it have to be trimmed down? I know Terry. I'm not going to say sorry. I'm not going to go there because I don't want to put other people's names into the frame. But certain people, perhaps are a little bit more afraid of writing stuff these days, so they're making characters weaker than they once were, or they're making things dumbed down so they don't upset the people. But Peter, I think Peter would kick my head in if I was to write a play that was dumbed down. Derek and Clive wasn't dumbed down, and it was the most offensive thing that most people have ever heard. That wonderful one where I just absolutely love that bit. He says, I was watching the Holocaust the other day. Did you see that program about the Holocaust? And Daddy goes, oh, I didn't say that, He says, well, yeah, you see, and well, you know, I got quite enraged by it, and I got on a number 36 bus, and I got up to Golders Green, and I must have massacred about 40,000 before I realised it's television what done this to me. Now, most people would find that offensive, but you have to look at the fact that Peter is alluding to a time and where television, what was happening with television, the violence and everything like that. He was saying the media is screwing that up so much. So there's no wonder people are getting on buses and going killing half the population at Golders Green. But most people would allude to the fact that was an attack on the Jews, when actually Peter was apparently Jewish himself. But there you go.
We do live in a world where everyone is watching everything they say or do. And to an extent, it's very important that we are progressive with things like equality and making sure that offence isn't at someone else's sake for no reason. But equally, we've had I think it might have been Callum we had on a few weeks ago that said something along the lines of, was it Ricky Gervais that talked about the guitar lessons?
Yes, he does a guitar lesson session. I can't remember about what happens.
Yes, basically, there's a notice on a notice board saying guitar lessons, and being offended by something that you don't have to watch is like going up and ripping that down and going, well, I don't want the guitar lessons. But that's irrelevant. It's not aimed at you. And we have this wonderful thing where we're not back in sort of the 70s where there were 2 channels on TV or 3 channels on TV. You now have 2,000-3,000 different channels and streaming services and things. If there's something that you don't like, turn it off.
Turn it off. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying
if you don't like. I was always honoured when people came to Pete and Dad and walked out. I loved it. I loved it. And we had drunks turning up. I remember some guy climbed on stage at one point. Yeah, and I think Kev came out with a brilliant response. So Kev Hawkins has become, I don't even know if you know Kev, but he's become rather like a sort of, he's becoming the Richard Branson at the moment. He's sort of starting to slowly dominating half the world. He's taken over John Blur's, the comedy club, completely. Yeah. He wants to do Pete and Dad in festivals next year. And wow. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but he's got plans for it, which is great. I want to see it happen. I really do, because I think it's so naughty. It's such a naughty play, but it's so true. It's so, it is about comedy. It's what happens in comedy. It's what happens when you're in a long partnership. I know what it's like being in a long partnership with somebody, where everything it's a marriage, As if Peter says, it says comedy is like a marriage, we're getting divorced, but it is comedy. Double acts are almost like in a marriage, and I think that all of that comes out in that play. And we did some rewrites on it. We put it on at Camden, we put it at Dingwalls. It went on at Dingwalls for a few nights, but I think it deserves much more than that. And I've heard from people, they're saying, oh, who's going to remember Pete and Dad? I mean, they're now gone, and all this stuff. What you don't realize about Peter Cook and Dudley Moore is they were immortal because their comedy is timeless. Whereas, and Morecambe and Mice will always be remembered, but their stuff is of a period. One thinks of them as of a period. They don't chime so much nowadays, where Pete and Dad do. And in fact, Peter Cook wasn't the best comedian in the world, and he was the comedian's comedian. Just after he died, they did a poll of all the comedians, and all the comedians named Peter the comedian's comedian. And because of the fact, I think the surreality came into Peter's stuff, and I think that's why I love him so much. Because again, he was influenced by Hilaire Belloc and Edward Lear and Lewis Carroll. That all, as a child, influenced him. I imagine Roald Dahl probably did as well, and that all comes out in his work. And even in Derek and Clive, there's some very, very funny moments. There's when he goes, "Oh, Lord Longford's got such lovely hair." He's so beautiful, but he's a horribly ugly pervert. But oh, he's so gorgeous, that Lord Longford. I'd love to wander through his mane and straight, go into that sort of stuff. It's hilarious, and because it's the antithesis of what people are, and that's what Peter was so good at. He could just find anything, you talk about a light bulb and make it funny, and that's why they're timeless. And I've heard people say, well, I mean, this year at Edinburgh, Dawson John Kosher went up with Les Dawson and sold out at the Assembly Rooms completely. And people are saying, "Oh, people aren't going to remember Pete and Dad." God. Sorry, they will. And also, it's not just about Pete and Dad. It's about other comedians who are all trapped in an afterlife. They're all trapped in this afterlife. No one can get. They have to find ways of getting through it. And obviously, they've got to go through a heavenly panel, which has got all these people like Mary Whitehouse on, So it's like, it's like they're really screwed. And then you've got suicides like Kenneth Williams, who can't move, can't get anywhere. Frankie Howard gets mixed up with another Frankie Howard. He got murdered for his bus ticket collection. Crazy stuff like that. But it is off the fucking wall. And God, I'm very proud of it, because there ain't much like that around these days. So anybody who's interested in a play about Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, which is sitting around doing accents at the moment, then do call.
I think for me, I mean, the reason I enjoyed it, I mean, I love those old comedians that they inspired my comedy and my, the work that I do. I think there is a great lack of comedy with the great. Nobody can back it up. You can back all that stuff up. They had reasons. They came from somewhere. They were intelligent men, like the Python team.
Yes, they were. And in fact, the Python team are a derivative of Cook, but they don't say it. This is why they say the Goons. No. Yes, the Goons came in. The Goons were brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong at all. They were pioneers. But who came between the Goons and Python? Pete and Dad. And Pete was influenced by the Goons hugely. So they keep talking about the Goons, but they don't mention Peter, and I find that quite annoying. I don't know why. I don't know why he's not mentioned, because I'm sure there's a couple of sketches, for example, the father and son sketch. I think it's with Graham Chapman when he comes on from Mill. What's it? What are you doing? What are you doing, Father? Oh, don't talk to your father. He's had one of them premieres today. And is this all about I've had a hard day at Mill? He says, don't talk about Mill. I've had premieres left, right, and centre. Now that came from a sketch with Pete and Dad earlier before that, which was talking about father, something about. It's a very similar sketch. I just can't put it to right. So these are all derivative, but they never accrue Peter. And Peter was, John Cleese actually famously said, it took me 3 days to write a sketch. It took Peter 3 minutes. Yeah. And that's the truth. Peter jotted down the judge in the Secret Policeman's Ball, which he did so brilliantly about the Jeremy Thorpe trial. He did that, jotted that down before he went on, literally.
Maybe, I don't know. Excuse me. Maybe there is that. There's a fear of intelligent comedians. There's a fear. Certainly, I think we see it manifested now. I don't know what you think, Johnny, but we have a government that is squashing the arts into a tiny corner. Because I think
look, mate, I'm going to vomit in a moment. So just I'll throw up. It's like my other hero, John Lydon, who basically, I've got a little story to tell you about this, because you'll like this. Did you know that John Lydon was influenced by Peter Cook and the Pistols? One of the characters, because he watched Drimblewedge and the Vegetations, the scene in Bedazzled, and now where Peter's going, I don't like you. And Johnny thought, that's interesting. I could use that as my front for Pistols. And the pillar box glasses that Peter had in Johnny used, they become an emblem of punk. The little, devil, the little pillar box glasses Peter wore as the devil. You see Johnny Rotten with, and then they became those. Everyone was wearing them. That's Peter. So I don't think Johnny and Peter are too far removed from each other. They're both rebels in their own way, and that's why they're my heroes. I also think Peter had a very dark past, and that's something that I could talk on. I think Peter, similarly to me in some ways, has had a past of a similar nature, and I think that's probably why things went a little bit wrong with him. Yeah, we're sadly, very sadly, running short of time. We will get you back on, Johnny, because I think we need to deal and chat if you absolutely. Well, I'm going to tell you something, so people don't think I'm a massive depressive. I'm actually a Buddhist now, so I'm a Buddhist. I've been a Buddhist now for 4 months, and I do lots of stuff like Eckhart Tolle. I've moved now in a different place where I was, so I'm a lot happier place, I think, than I was, and I'm sorting a lot more out in my life.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, come back. and tell us about that, because I think that's a very, given where we've been in the past couple of years or so, and performers have been, that story I think would be very inspiring. But before we go, I'm going to throw something at you, which, knowing the wonderful improviser you are, will be no problem to deal with.
That's very kind of you.
Jonny, wrap us up with a funny story.
Yes,
Something that's happened to you, and I know you'll have one.
This is the start of I'm going back to when I was 21 years old. I was at drama school, and we were doing Andrew Cleese and the Lion, and I had a Roman centurion's outfit, and I loved this, and I think it was worn by somebody in The Greatest Story Ever Told, one of the Burns and Nathan thing. And you weren't not supposed to do this. I stuck it in a bin liner, and I took it back on the circle, Julian, or whatever it was, back to my place in Willesden Green. Which, strangely, I live in Dollis Hill now, not a million miles where I started, which is really weird how we come back to where we began. But yeah, anyway, so my friend was from Liverpool, and I just strolled down the stairs in this full Roman centurion's outfit. And he went, "Oh, like John." Nothing was out of the ordinary whatsoever. And anyway, I said, "I bet you won't go up to the pub in that." I said, "You're on." And I decided to walk straight up to this place, which is right at the top of Crickleby. There's a place called the Production Village, which is where they used to do a lot of big movies in those days. And a friend of mine had just been to see Billy Graham. So there was a double reason why I was dressed like this, because I wanted to do the John Cleese thing in Meaning of Life, in Life of Brian, where he goes up and he taps him on the shoulder. And I just walked up to my friend Chris, who's I did another podcast for recently, and I tapped him on the shoulder and I went, "Right, you'll fucking nick me, old beauty." And he turned around and went, "Hello, John." As if nothing was out of the ordinary. Anyway, in those days, you used to get absolutely loads of people smoked joints in those days. I mean, in pubs, people were smoking joints. Nowadays, you'd get arrested or whatever. There's this kind of weird freedom in those days. And this place in the production village, there were two Irish friends of mine. And I think it was they used to call them 18 Skinners, and they were huge and like that big. And I was puffing this massive joint, dressed as a Roman centurion. There was a punk band on stage. And I started pogoing around with a sword by my side and all this stuff. I was stoned out of my tiny tree. Now, bear in mind, they'd never had comedy on that stage before. Never, right? This is a live punk band. What lunatic is going to dive onto a stage, grab a microphone and do? And what happened was I jumped on. So I thought, well, I can't. I'm dressed as a bloody Roman centurion. For God, I've got to make the most of this. So I jumped on stage, grabbed the microphone, and went, "Harvey! Leg it of the six! Halt! Leg it of the six! Leg it of the six." Excuse me, has anyone seen 3,000 Roman legions walking through here? And I did 45-minute stint on being a Roman centurion in a time warp, going like, "What are you drinking? What was that? Meat?" or whatever, I can't remember what I did. I was stoned out of my tree. But at the end of it, I was 21, remember? It's when you've got all the good balls in the world, you don't know why you're doing stuff. But at the end of it, they passed around a pint pot full of 50p bits, and they just gave it to me at the end. And to this day, I wish Channel 4 had been there. I wish anyone had been there, because it was, I've done stand-up since. I was a finalist in Hackney Empire New Acts of the Year twice, but I don't have the balls I once did, mainly because they dropped much lower than they were.
Oh dear. We were drifting around that kind of area. And I thought,
but that is a very true, amazing story and
Brilliant.
Absolute truth.
Wow,
absolute truth. Yeah.
And well, who would have thought that stoned Roman centurion in his early 20s would have led to the man we're speaking to now, who, it has to be said, has just given us the most amazing half an hour, 40 minutes of chat. Thank you so much, Jonny. It's been
I've really enjoyed it. It's because I know Drew so well. I didn't know, you're such a relaxed fellow that it makes it so much easier for me. I think it's nicer when people aren't firing questions at you, because you can go into your own bubble, and you can sort of, I'm trying to help people as well. If anyone out there, I would do Wim Hof breathing. First of all, look at Wim Hof, extraordinary. Do cold showers to get yourself on track, because the mind's a very important thing. And I would also say do something called the Tibetans. Look into that, because that's something you do in the morning. 5 of those every morning. That's what Bruce Forsyth used to do. I know he's dead now, but till into his 90s, I think. And he used to do that for longevity. And there's loads of books like Eckhart Tolle who talk about being in the power of now, because we live so much in the past and the future. And I know this. I've been in it.
Amazing.
It's so difficult. So there's so much you can do.
Johnny, I'm gonna say this now. You have an open invitation to come back at any time and talk further on this, because as I said, what you've been through, some of it is very important stuff. It feeds into what you do, but come back and we'll delve a little bit deeper with what I can only say is a very good friend of mine, and a pretty much a legend in his own Centurion's uniform.
A legend in his own lunchtime.
A legionnaire in his own lunchtime. Johnny, thanks so much, mate.
Johnny, it's been
Please
brilliant.
come back.
Thank you, mate.
Guys.
We'll see you very soon.
Thank you
Take
very
care.
much. Take care.
Cheers, buddy.
Salute.
Cheers.
Salute. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, mate.
Bye, all. Bye.
Well, there you have it, Sam. It's like being blown away by a wind of thought and energy and impro with Johnny. It's, I mean, I haven't seen him for quite a few years, but it was like he just entered the room again. What a fascinating guy! What a fascinating chat.
So enigmatic, so kind of passionate about what he does, and he's sort of taken influences one step further. Like a lot of people have influences that they not try and copy, but use methods and pick up some of their sort of techniques and ideas. He's gone one step further and almost becoming some of those people that he's really admired, and taking their careers further, or keeping the memory going for them, which is amazing to be able to do both sides of things amongst the million other jobs he does. And just what an unbelievably varied and entertaining career Johnny has led, and just a hugely knowledgeable guy. Hugely.
Yeah, it's what you say, is he has taken those characters as influences and put them on stage. It's kind of he puts his money where his mouth is, almost, with that, you know. And I know he had a very successful one-man show as George Sanders. He's done the Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, and he kind of stands by that. And you kind of have to admire someone, and without going into too much detail, because we didn't, but you know, and he will, you know, he's had that dark side to his life, that he's experienced that, and not afraid to put his money where his mouth is. And I kind of admire that about Johnny. And also, he's just a bloody nice bloke as well. He's very funny. He's he's quite tiring to be around, Johnny, when you're working with him, because the brain never stops. He's always doing something, and
you want to keep up. And you've
got to run to keep up with Johnny, which is kind of exciting, which is.
And a fellow villain. It's lovely because I know you've done a bit of villainy over the years, but equally you've taken your comedy chops out and about as well, and done some other stuff. But Johnny, like me, I guess it's the tall dark thing. We kind of almost typecast a little bit and go, right, you can be the grumpy, horrible one. But as he says, I think it's a very clever way of looking at it, that you do need that element of comedy to it. I mean, the best villains do have that almost psycho comic, like hilarity, but evilness behind them. So a much more in-depth look at how perhaps evil characters develop. But yeah, completely agree. I think you do need that sort of almost insane element as well with the comedy. So, but yeah, just a really lovely bloke, a really lovely chat, and I'm so glad that we were able to get him on, because we've been trying for a little while. But just the busiest man in showbiz. I think
enormously busy. He's never in one place. Difficult to pin him down. But yeah, great stuff. Right, really enjoyed that.
And you have, I'm assuming, because I know you finish this coming week, so you have a busy week, being that you've got your final few shows.
Yeah, we've got the final show run of Ghost on the Wire, which has been great fun. And also we're continuing, pre-production work for Halloween and Christmas. So yeah, I'll be running around a little bit mad this week. So
blue ass fly, as they say. But yeah, hopefully, mate, it will be a most enjoyable one for you. And I'll tell you what, how about we top off your enjoyable week next week with a bit of a chat at the end of it? Shall we get together again?
It couldn't get any more enjoyable than that, mate. Really, I love it.
Well, until then, Drew, I raise my water to you, and
I put my teacup down. I put it too far away to reach it, but I raised my imaginary teacup.
Oh, seamless stuff. Anyway, have a cracking week, mate. Everyone listening, watching, thank you for joining us as always. I hope you've enjoyed, and we will see you next time.
See you next time. Take care.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.
T.
Thanks again for watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
Please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video.
Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And please support us on social media. All our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so why not share with your family and friends so they can join in too? Thanks very much. See you next time.